Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Govardhana, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Adi Govardhana. Jaya Radha Govardhana, Radha Govardhana, Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Govardhana, Radha Govardhana, Shri Radhe. Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gora Hari Bol. Jai Mishapad Paramahamsa Parivraj, Jagata Sri Shrimandas Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki. Jai Mishapad Paramahamsa Parivraj, Jagata Sri Shrimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prince Kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopina Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mahapo Navadip Dham Ki. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki. Gangamaya Ki. Tulsi Devi Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we're reading from the Caitanya Caritamrita that we do here at New Govardhana on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday. So thank you all for coming and welcome. Hare Krishna. Happy New Year to everybody. Hope it's an auspicious 2022. So we're reading from Adi-lila chapter 10, text 49, which is up on the board here. Jai Jai Shri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Okay, so Shumarari Gupta Shaka Premara Bandara. Shri Murari Gupta Shaka Premara Bandara. Prabhu Ra Hridaya Drava Shuni Danya Nara. Prabhu Ra Hridaya Drava Shunya Danya Yanra. Shri Murari Gupta Shaka Primera Bandara. Prabhu Ra Hridaya Drava Shuni Danya Yanra. Shri Murari Gupta Shaka Primera Bandara. Prabhu Ra Hridaya Drava Shuni Danya Yanra. Okay, do the word for word. Shri Murari Gupta. Of the name Shri Murari Gupta. Shaka, branch. Primera, of love of Godhead. Bandara, store. Prabhura, of the Lord. Hridaya, the heart. Drave, melts. Shuni, hearing. Danya, humility. Yanra, of whom. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Caitanya. Purport. Sri Murari Gupta wrote a book called Sri Caitanya Charita. He belonged to a Vaidya physician family of Srihat, the paternal home of Lord Caitanya, and later became a resident of Navadvip. He was among the elders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Caitanya exhibited his Varaha form in the house of Murari Gupta, as described in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-lila 3rd chapter. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his Mahaprakash form, he appeared before Murari Gupta as Lord Ramachandra. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu were sitting together in the house of Srivas Thakur, Murari Gupta first offered his respects to Lord Caitanya and then to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu, however, was older than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore Lord Caitanya remarked that Murari Gupta had violated social etiquette, for he should have first shown respect to Nityananda Prabhu and then to him. In this way, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Murari Gupta was informed about the position of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and the next day he offered obeisances first to Lord Nityananda and then to Lord Caitanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave chewed pan or betel nut to Murari Gupta. Once Murari Gupta offered foodstuffs to Lord Caitanya that were cooked with excessive ghee, and the next day the Lord became sick and went to Murari Gupta for treatment. Lord Caitanya accepted some water from the water pot of Murari Gupta, and thus he was cured. The natural remedy for indigestion is to drink a little water, and since Murari Gupta was a physician, he gave the Lord some drinking water and cured him. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the house of Srivas Thakur in his Chaturabhuja Murti, Murari Gupta became his carrier in the form of Garuda. And in these pastimes of ecstasy, the Lord then got up on his back. It was the desire of Murari Gupta to leave his body before the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Lord forbade him to do so. This is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi-lila chapter 20. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one day appeared in ecstasy as the Varaha Murti, Murari Gupta offered him prayers. He was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra, and his staunch devotion is vividly described in the Adi-lila 15th chapter, verse 137 through to 157. Oh, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Omagana Chamanandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Murari Gupta, the 21st branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was a storehouse of love of Godhead. His great humility and meekness melted the heart of Lord Caitanya. So this is the section of the Adi-lila in chapter 10, which is describing the different branches of the tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we've been talking about different personalities who were present for Lord Chaitanya's Lila, and today we're hearing about Sri Murari Gupta, who was one of Lord Chaitanya's most intimate associates. In fact, it was the diary that Murari Gupta kept along with Sarup Damodar's notes and diary that the Chaitanya Caritamrita is based on. That's what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was using to write the Chaitanya Caritamrita, because prior to the Chaitanya Caritamrita, which is about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, there was only the Chaitanya Bhagavat available, which is written by Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur. So the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's later years were recorded in the Chaitanya Caritamrita. So Murari Gupta is a very exalted personality. As we know that when Krishna comes, or when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, who's not different from Krishna, he also comes with all of his associates from the spiritual world. So some of these associates were appearing prior to the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Murari Gupta is one of these associates who appeared in the world before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested. So he's a fascinating personality and an important personality to know about, because he was so involved in all of the leelas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially the Adi-lilas, the leelas that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took place in the first 24 years of his life in Navadvip, which are recorded in the Adi-lila. And then the next 6 years of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, from 24 to 30, were spent preaching and travelling all over India, and then the last 18 years were spent in Jagannath Puri, which is recorded in the Antya-lila. So it's explained that Murari Gupta was actually Hanumanji, and Hanumanji was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. So when you read the Chaitanya Caritamrita, we find out who the hidden identities of these personalities and who they actually are. So the word Gupta means hidden. So the name Murari Gupta indicates that Murari, Sri Chaitanya Dev, had secretly taken up permanent residence in his heart. Murari Gupta took birth in a family of Ayurvedic physicians in the district of Sylhet, which is in Bangladesh. A lot of great Vaishnavas appeared within Bangladesh. So Murari Gupta was one of these personalities who appeared there. The names of his parents are unknown. He is somewhat older than Mahaprabhu. When his family moved from Sylhet to take up residence in Navadvip, they lived in the same neighbourhood as Sri Chaitanya. So Murari was Nimai's companion in many of his childhood pastimes. It is also written in the Chaitanya Caritamrita that Murari observed Mahaprabhu's childhood pastimes. His name is included in the Chaitanya Bhagavat's list of associates who appeared prior to Mahaprabhu. So other devotees were appearing in Navadvip, setting the scene for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to make his appearance in this world. So it's explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. There was Sri Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and Murari Gupta became a disciple later on of Chandrasekhar. Jagadish, Gopinath, Shriman, Murari, Sri Garuda, and Gangadas. And Gangadas was the teacher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and also Murari Gupta was in the school as an elder student at the time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Gangadas's school. So Murari Gupta's student life in Navadvip. Along with Mahaprabhu, he was also a student at Gangadas's school. When the Lord was engaged in his pastimes of learning and study, he would often engage Murari in joking and mock debate. Murari Gupta was very much concerned with talking about Lord Ram and Lord Krishna, but Nimai Pandit would always be challenging people with grammatical puzzles. The devotees wanted to run away because they didn't want to talk about all these material things. But at the same time, Nimai was so beautiful because he was actually Lord Ram himself. Murari couldn't give up his association. Murari Gupta was a scholar, and Nimai Pandit would debate with him back and forth and back and forth. Lord Chaitanya would sometimes defeat him, and then he would say, "Murari, go home, do your studies, come back, and I have more questions for you tomorrow." Murari Gupta was amazed at Mahaprabhu's wonderful intelligence. There's more elaborate descriptions in the Chaitanya Bhagavat about these pastimes that Nimai Pandit, or Lord Chaitanya, when he was manifesting this pastime of being Nimai Pandit, this scholar, and he would come up with grammatical challenges to the students in Gangadasa school, and then he would ask them to defeat him, and they couldn't. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would defeat his own arguments, and he would keep doing this on and on and on. He would present arguments and no one could defeat him, so then he would defeat his own arguments. So Murari Gupta was involved in these particular pastimes as Nimai Pandit Prabhu. During one heated argument, Murari Gupta and Lord Chaitanya began pushing one another. The scuffle continued into the Ganga. They stirred up so much mud that the ladies couldn't fill their pots and the brahmanas couldn't bathe properly. One day the Lord was pleased with an explanation Murari Gupta had given him, in which he was unable to receive the Lord's grace. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu touched Murari with his hand and his entire body was filled with ecstasy. Murari Gupta thought that this person can in no way be an ordinary person. Can an ordinary human attain such scholarship so quickly? And his touch brings such ecstatic pleasure. So Murari Gupta was realising from an early age that this Nimai Pandit was no ordinary personality. So another funny pastime. This is Nimai Pandit spoils Murari's lunch. And this is explained by Lochan Dastakor in his Chaitanya Mangala. One day the learned scholar and physician Murari Gupta visited Navadvip accompanied by his followers. While walking down the road, they were discussing yoga shastras. The young boy, Nimai, walking directly behind Murari Gupta, began mimicking Murari's way of speaking. Murari noticed this from the corner of his eyes, but continued speaking to his followers. Nimai and his friends then increased their mocking of Murari by exactly imitating both his walking style and his hand gestures. Finally, Murari became furious and rebuked Nimai. "Who says that this boy is well behaved? I recognise him. He is the son of Jagannath Mishra. Everywhere I have heard his glories. His name is Nimai." Hearing his words out of kindness to his devotee, Murari Gupta, Lord Gaura Hari became angry. Knitting his eyebrows, the eloquent young boy said, "When you take your meal, I will teach you something." Skipping forward. Just bear with me because I have to go between two screens here. Bewildered by this oblique statement, Murari returned to his residence. He became absorbed in his domestic activities and forgot about the incident. At noon, he sat down to peacefully take his meal. Meanwhile, Vishvambhara, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, clad himself in opulent garments, wrapped a sash around his waist, tied his hair in a triple top knot, and placed a string of tulsi beads and a strand of large pearls around his neck. He anointed his eyes with black kajal and decorated his body with glistening golden ornaments. Then, carrying ladus made of condensed milk in his hand, Vishvambhara entered the house of the king of doctors and with a thunderous voice called out, "Murari!" Hearing that sound, Murari remembered what Nimai had said earlier. Feeling a bit surprised, Murari said, "What are you doing here?" Nimai replied, "Oh, don't get up, it's only I. Carry on with your meal." As Murari Gupta became absorbed in eating, Nimai slowly moved closer. Then suddenly, he began passing urine on Murari's plate. "Ah, what are you doing? Shame, shame on you!" Murari cried as he jumped up. Gaura, Lord Caitanya, began clapping his hands and dancing. He gleefully said, "Murari, give up the path of bhakti. You have adopted the path of yoga and move about making funny gestures. Give up karma and give up jnana and just worship Krishna with all your heart. Become a rasika bhakta, expert in tasting transcendental bliss. One who is attached to material things can't do Krishna bhajan, and his consciousness remains low and impure. Lord Hari is supremely merciful. Not only does he possess all powers, but he is the father of all souls, and from him the eternal Brahman is manifested. He is the treasure and very life of the gopis of Vrindavan. Why do you not dedicate your life to worshipping him?" After saying this, the golden jewel Gaura Hari suddenly vanished. Murari Gupta couldn't find him anywhere. Again and again in his heart, Murari thought, "Sachi's son is the Supreme Lord himself." Thinking in this way, Murari Gupta hurriedly left his house. Due to being overwhelmed with joy, he couldn't walk properly. Somehow he arrived at the house of Jagannath Mishra. There he found Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi caressing, kissing and speaking affectionately to their son Nimai. They told him, "You are the nectarian treasure of our lives. Whatever sufferings we experience, we forget all of them as soon as we gaze at the moon of your face." Murari Gupta was overcome with bliss. Although Jagannath and Sachi Devi welcomed him, Murari didn't say a word. He only gazed at the beautiful face of Gaurachandra. From his head to his feet, the hairs of his body stood erect. Streams of tears flowed from his eyes, drenching his body. His voice faltered and his eyes reddened like the rising sun. He felt like a stick before Gauranga's feet, again and again bowing before him. Acting as if he didn't understand what Murari was doing, Vishvambara, Lord Caitanya, climbed up on his mother's lap. Sachimata then spoke to the elder and respected Murari Gupta. "Murari, please bless our son. Did he do something to offend you? Please tell me what offence our son has committed. Let any suffering come to us, but give us the blessings that our son may live forever." Speaking these words, Sachidev and Jagannath humbly held Murari's hand and bowed before him. Smiling, Murari Gupta said, "Your son Vishvambara is the master of all demigods. In the future, the boy that you're raising will reveal his true identity to you. You are the most fortunate parents in the world. Take care of him and protect him. Remember my words, your Vishvambara is actually the Supreme Lord." After saying this, Murari quickly left the house of Jagannath Mishra. His heart bursting with bliss, Murari went to visit Advaita Acharya, the universal teacher and reservoir of bhakti. Falling at his feet, Murari said, "You are the greatest devotee. You are a wish-fulfilling tree that can fulfill all desires. I just saw the most wonderful boy in the home of Jagannath Mishra. His name is Nimai Pandit Vishvambara. He is totally transcendental to this material world, yet he plays happily with his friends just like an ordinary boy." Upon hearing this, Advaita Acharya, the jewel among the Brahmins, made a great roaring sound, while on every limb of his body his hair stood erect. Advaita said, "Murari, listen, this is a great secret. Nimai Pandit is the Supreme Lord, the reservoir of all rasas and the embodiment of transcendental beauty." Then Advaita Acharya and Murari Gupta joyfully embraced and forgot everything. So it's a wonderful pastime that took place between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his intimate devotee Murari Gupta. So we can see that, yes, God does have a sense of humour. He's a person and he has a sense of humour, thankfully. So Mahaprabhu's special mercy to Murari Gupta. We'll continue on with some more pastimes. So when Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, had returned from Gaya, and when he was in Gaya he was initiated into Harinam Sankirtan by Ishvarapuri. So he's returned back to Navadvip as a Vaishnava, as a devotee. So he's no longer this mundane Nimai Pandit scholar, and now he's become a devotee manifesting who he really is. So when he returned from Gaya, he saw Murari at the house of Shuklambara Brahmachari. Murari had heard of Mahaprabhu's transformations from Sriman Pandit. Mahaprabhu was pleased with Murari and one day gave him a vision of his form as a Varaha avatar. So in the Caitanya Caritamrita it explains, one day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt the ecstasy of the boar incarnation and got up on the shoulders of Murari Gupta. It seems he likes climbing on the body of Murari Gupta, climbing on his back and his shoulders. Thus they both danced in Murari Gupta's courtyard. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to cry out, "Shukara, Shukara!" thus crying out for the boar incarnation of the Lord. He assumed his form as the boar incarnation and got up on the shoulders of Murari Gupta. He carried a small gadu, a small water pot with a nozzle, and thus he symbolically picked up the earth from the depths of the ocean. This is the pastimes of Lord Varaha. So there's a bit more of an elaborate description by Vrindavan Das Thakur in the Chaitanya Bhagavat of this pastime. I think in the purport, Prabhupada, briefly in the purport, he's more or less summarising the Chaitanya Bhagavat in a very touching over the basic pastimes, but obviously there's a more elaborate description in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. And the Chaitanya Bhagavat is actually available on the database if anyone wants to read in more detail these pastimes. Highly recommend it. So one day the Lord heard the pastimes of Krishna and his incarnation as the boar, Lord Varaha. Roaring, he rushed to Murari Gupta's house. Lord Chaitanya had a special love for Murari Gupta, just like Lord Ramachandra had a special love for Hanuman. When Lord Gaurachandra arrived at Murari Gupta's house, Murari Gupta received the Lord with great respect, offering obeisances to the Lord's feet. The Lord hurried past him shouting, "Shukala, Shukala, Baraha, Baraha." Murari was left dumbfounded. Looking all around him, the Lord entered the temple room of Lord Vishnu and saw a beautiful water pot standing in the corner. Just at that moment, the Lord took the form of Lord Varaha. Absorbed in this mood, he lifted the water pot with his tusks, and roaring loudly like a boar, he stood there with his 4 hooves. So just remember that Caitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna is Purna Bhagavan. He's the absolute complete Bhagavan. So because Lord Chaitanya is non-different, then all of these incarnations also reside within the body of Caitanya Mahaprabhu as Purna Bhagavan. So you can, in the Caitanya Charitamrita, we see at various occasions he manifests these different forms of the Lord to please his devotees. Trembling with fear, Murari pleaded with the Lord. Before we get to that. The Lord ordered Murari Gupta, "Offer prayers to me, Murari, offer me prayers." Murari remained dumbfounded. Amazed by this extraordinary sight, no words came to his mouth. The Lord then said, "Speak up, Murari, speak up. You do not have to fear. Don't you know my supreme identity?" Trembling with fear, Murari pleaded with the Lord, saying, "O Lord, only you yourself know how to glorify yourself and offer prayers. Lord Anantashesh, who holds the entire creation upon just one of his hoods, has manifested 1,000 mouths to glorify you. Yet he laments that he cannot find the limits of your glories. Who is more capable than Anantashesh to glorify you? The entire material universe follows the instructions of the Vedas. Yet these very Vedas are unable to fully reveal your transcendental absolute nature. We have heard that there are an unlimited number of universes in this transcendental material creation, and yet they all emanate from the pores of your transcendental body. You are the fully independent supreme autocrat, and you are always blissful. How is it possible for the limited Vedic literature to describe the pastimes which you perform according to your own sweet will? Therefore, O Lord, only you know yourself fully, and others can know you only if you reveal yourself to them through your causeless mercy. What ability do I possess to offer you prayers and glorify you?" Saying this, Murari Gupta fell flat upon the earth, offering obeisances to the Lord. Lord Varaha was very pleased with Murari Gupta's words. Then, expressing anger at the Vedic literatures, he spoke aloud. So this is in the Bhav of Varaha. "The Vedas have the audacity to say that I have no hands, no legs, no mouth and no eyes. There is a mischievous sannyasi living in Kashi who teaches this to his students. That rascal tries to mutilate my transcendental form. He studies the Vedas and teaches others, but he does not accept my transcendental form. As a result of such blasphemy, he has been attacked by the dreaded disease leprosy, but he cannot understand the reason for this affliction." I think he's referring, was it Prakashananda Sarasvati he's referring to there? This sannyasi in Kashi is a Mayavadi. "I am the Lord of all sacrifices, the Supreme Lord Vishnu. There are no imperfections of my transcendental form. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are always engaged in glorifying my supreme transcendental position and nature. A mere touch of my body can spiritualize and purify everything. Yet that rascal is so insolent that he proclaims that my transcendental form is non-existent. Carefully hear my opinion, Murari Gupta. I will reveal to you that which is unmanifest even by the Vedas. I accept the incarnation of Varaha to lift the material world out of the waters of nescience. Know me to be the ultimate goal of the Vedas. The purpose of my present incarnation is to propagate this congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna. In this incarnation, as in other incarnations, I will annihilate the miscreants for the protection and pleasure of my devotees. I cannot tolerate my devotees being threatened and tortured. I will even kill my own son to protect my beloved devotees. This is not a lie, Murari. Murari Gupta was overwhelmed by the Lord's presence and narration, and he wept with joy. All glories to Sri Gaurachandra and Sri Murari Gupta. All glories to Varahadev, the protector of his devotees. So in this way, Lord Caitanya went to the homes of all his devotees and by his causeless mercy revealed his supreme identity to them. The devotees and servants recognized their supreme Lord and their hearts were filled with ecstatic bliss. They now became fearless and did not care for the atheists. They went everywhere in all public places and chanted Krishna's name loudly. Day and night the devotees spent their time with the Lord chanting and singing Lord Krishna's holy name. So now Caitanya Mahaprabhu is manifesting his Sankirtan pastimes in Navadvip. So another devotee, Srivas, had a place in Navadvip called Srivas Sangam, and the Lord and his associates would all gather together at night and perform very blissful and ecstatic kirtans in this Srivas Sangam. And Murari Gupta was also involved in these kirtans and explains that at the nightly kirtans in Srivas Sangam, Murari Gupta pleased Gaura Hari with melodious chanting of the Bhagavat. He would also sing and dance expertly. So Murari Gupta served Sri Gauranga in all of his Adi-lilas. So he was also a great poet, as we know that Hanumanji is also a great singer as well. So as being non-different from Hanuman, he was serving the Lord in this way with his melodious chanting and dancing in the ecstatic kirtans at Srivas Sangam. So Lord Caitanya tests Murari's devotion to Lord Ramachandra. Lord Gauranga once tested Murari Gupta's attachment to his worshipful Lord Ramachandra. Lord Gaurasundra preached to Murari about the supreme sweetness and position of Rajendra Kumara, Krishna. Murari, just worship Krishna and take shelter of him. Nothing but his service can satisfy the mind. Although Murari Gupta became somewhat inclined towards Sri Krishna, the thought of losing Lord Ramachandra's association devastated him. That night he prayed to Lord Ram to take his life. He asked for this because he couldn't stop serving Ram, nor could he defy Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu's request. After crying all night, Murari approached Lord Gauranga and said, "What should I do? I've sold my head to the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra, but if I break your order to worship Lord Krishna, then what can I do?" Smiling, Lord Gauranga replied, "All glories to Murari Gupta. You're so fixed in your worship that even my request couldn't turn your mind. This is exactly the type of love and affection the servitor must have for the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if the Lord wants separation, a devotee cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Just to test your firm faith in your Lord, I repeatedly asked you to change your worship from Lord Ram to Lord Krishna." Congratulating Murari Gupta, the Lord continued, "You are the incarnation of Hanuman, the eternal servant of Lord Ram. Therefore, why should you give up your worship of Lord Ram?" I think it's also, was it Anupan, was Sanatan Goswami's brother, also was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra, and also he was unable to change his bhav from Lord Ram to Lord Krishna. So I think in the Chaitanya Bhagavat it explains that Murari Gupta especially shows that one has to be very faithful to their Ishtadev and not change their mood of service toward their Ishtadev, their most worshipful form of the Lord that they're serving in that particular mood. So Murari Gupta, being Hanuman, the best devotee of Lord Ram, was able to change that bhav. So more special mercy for Murari Gupta. He seems to get a lot of mercy, doesn't he, Murari Gupta? He's very fortunate. So, during the Mahaprakash Lila, Lord Gaura Hari had the same kind of affection for Murari Gupta that Lord Ramachandra had for his servant Hanuman. On the occasion of the 21-hour great manifestation, the Mahaprakash, at Srivas Sangam, the Lord gave Murari a vision of himself as Ramachandra. When he saw his worshipful deity before him, Murari fainted. Then he glorified the Lord in a way which so pleased him that he gave a benediction to Murari which fulfilled all his desires. He ordered Murari, "Look at my form." Lo and behold, Murari saw the form of Lord Ram directly before him. He saw the Lord of the universe in the swarthy colour of durva grass sitting in the Vyasasan in the position of a great bowman. He saw Sita and Lakshman standing on either side of him and his army of monkeys surrounding him, singing hymns of praise. He addressed Murari, "Murari, for so many days, couldn't you recognise who I really am? Just see my divine form." Then Murari saw Mahaprabhu as his adored Lord Ram. Then he saw himself amongst these monkeys in his original form, and he fainted. Mahaprabhu called to him, "Murari, get up, just see my divine form. Have you forgotten who set Ravana's Lanka on fire? It was you, Hanuman. Get up and gaze on the form of Lakshman, who is the very embodiment of your life. Offer your obeisances to that one for whose sadness you cried so much, Sita Devi." Then Murari Gupta glorified the Lord in a way which so pleased him that he asked Murari Gupta for a benediction. So Murari Gupta wanted no benediction from the Lord. He wanted nothing from the Lord, because that's the mood of pure devotees. They don't want anything from the Lord. They just want to render unconditional service. So Murari Gupta, being pressed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a benediction, just requested him, said that, "Please, my dear Lord, that may I always accompany you wherever you incarnate and manifest your wonderful pastimes." And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him this benediction, that you may appear with me whenever I manifest these pastimes. So in this way, Murari Gupta was in great ecstasy. On another occasion, Mahaprabhu heard Murari Gupta recite the glories of Lord Ramachandra, and he wrote, "The servant of Ram," on his forehead. He wrote it on his forehead, "The servant of Lord Ram." There's another pastime which Prabhupada touched on as purport here, where Mahaprabhu got indigestion. So it's explained in a bit more detail in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that Murari Gupta returned home after this pastime of seeing Lord Ramachandra manifesting. He would chuckle to himself as he said one thing and did something else. In jubilation he said, "I will eat now." Then his chaste wife bought lunch for him. Being overwhelmed with love for Lord Chaitanya, Murari Gupta threw handfuls of rice to the floor while calling out, "Eat, eat!" As he threw rice mixed with ghee to the floor, he repeatedly exclaimed, "Eat, Krishna, eat!" On seeing Murari's behaviour, his chaste wife laughed. She repeatedly brought more rice and placed it on his plate. Murari's chaste wife knew that he was a Mahabhagavat, so she cautioned him by chanting the name of Krishna. Whatever Murari offered, the Lord ate. The Lord never disregarded Murari's request. So whatever rice Murari offered, the Lord ate. Early the next morning, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Murari Gupta's house to meet him. When he arrived, Murari Gupta was sitting there enjoying the ecstasy of Krishna's pastimes and names. Upon seeing the Lord, Murari offered his obeisances. Murari Gupta then respectfully offered the Lord a place to sit, and the son of Jagannath Mishra sat down. Murari Gupta asked, "O Lord, what brings you here?" Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "I came for treatment." Murari Gupta then said, "What is the cause of your indigestion? What foods did you eat yesterday?" Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear friend, how will you know? You threw rice on the floor and said, 'Eat, eat!' You forgot, but your wife knows everything. You offered it to me, so how could I refuse to eat? What is the use of your treatments and remedies? I got indigestion by eating your rice. Drinking water relieves indigestion. My indigestion was caused by eating your rice, so the cure is drinking your water." After speaking this way, the Lord, fully absorbed in the mellows of devotional service, picked up Murari's water pot and drank from it. Seeing the Lord's display of mercy, Murari fell unconscious. Murari Gupta's entire family then cried in ecstatic love of God. So Murari Gupta he took birth in a family of Ayurvedic physicians, so he was also in that role of being an Ayurvedic physician. But it's explained that not only could he cure people's material ails, but he was able to cure their whole material ail of having a material body. So he was able to instruct them in the pastimes of the Lord, and was able to bestow bhakti upon his patients, and therefore they were delivered from material existence. So it's explained also in the purport, Prabhupada touched on how it was the desire of Murari Gupta to leave his body before the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but the Lord forbade him to do so. So this is a very nice pastime also. Running out of time. We'll briefly run over this one. So one day, the most pure Murari thought about the position of the Lord's incarnations. While the Lord and his associates are still present in this world, I should think of my own welfare. I cannot understand the pastimes of Krishna or how he acts at a particular time. Sometimes he creates and then he annihilates. Although he destroyed Ravana and his dynasty to bring back Sita, why did he then abandon her? Therefore I should give up my body while he is still present in this world. The proper time to give up my body is while that great personality is still present in this world. After contemplating in this way, Murari Gupta secretly bought one sharp knife. As he bought that knife, he hid it inside the house and thought, tonight I will happily give up my body. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu resides in the heart of all living entities. He therefore understood Murari's resolution. The Lord quickly came to Murari's house, and Murari offered his respectful obeisances at the Lord's feet. Feeling great compassion for Murari, the Lord sat on an asana and began to narrate topics of Krishna. The Lord then said, "O Murari, will you do what I say?" Murari replied, "O Lord, this body belongs to you." The Lord asked, "Is that a fact?" Murari replied, "Yes." The Lord then whispered in his ear, "Then give me that knife." "You have kept a knife inside the house which you plan to kill yourself. Give it to me." In great lamentation, Murari exclaimed, "Alas, alas, someone has told you a lie." The Lord said, "Murari, you are certainly naive. Are you saying that I will know something only if someone else tells me? I know who made that knife, and I know where you have hidden it." The Lord is the omniscient supersoul in the hearts of all, so he knows everything. He went inside the house and brought out that knife. The Lord said, "O Murari, this is how you behave. For what fault of mine do you want to leave me? If you leave me, with whom will I enjoy pastimes? Who has given you such ideas? O Murari, give me your word that you'll never think of such things again." Lord Chaitanya then embraced Murari and placed his hand on Murari's head. "You will eat my head, Gupta. You will eat my head if you ever desire to give it your body again." Murari immediately fell to the ground and washed the lotus feet of the Lord with his tears of love. The pious Murari cried as he held the lotus feet of the Lord, and Sri Sachinandan cried as he picked up Murari and embraced him. So we can see this is as Rupa Goswami talks about in the Nectar of Devotion, that one of the characteristics of pure bhakti, pure devotional service, that it brings the Lord under his control, which is why it's very rarely achieved. But we can see with these pastimes here the intimacy between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal associate Murari Gupta, who was Hanuman. So these are not ordinary pastimes. So just by hearing these pastimes, they purify us and enliven us in our bhakti. So they're nice to meditate upon. Of course, there's many other pastimes with Murari Gupta and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's explained that Murari Gupta was also in Katwa when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. It was a great devastation for all the devotees, seeing Lord Chaitanya having his beautiful hair shaved off and becoming a renunciate monk. So it's explained that Murari stood by weeping like a child as he saw this pastime unfolding. And later on, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas and was living in Jagannath Puri, Murari Gupta and his wife would come every year and relish the Lord's company, and they would feed many preparations to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Murari Gupta also took part in the Rath Yatra festival. It's explained he was a member of the 3rd Sankirtan group, in which Mukunda Dutt sang and Haridas Thakur danced. So, very wonderful devotee, Murari Gupta Prabhu, and obviously we can pray to Murari Gupta for his mercy and to enthuse us in our own practices of bhakti and develop a wonderful state of devotion to the Lord. So we better stop there because it's late. I don't know if anybody has any points or thing they would like to add before we finish. No, everyone's hungry? Jai Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki, Murari Gupta Prabhu ki, Hanumanji ki, Lord Ramachandra ki, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Hari Hari Bol.